Halliburton, no show to Detroit, so with Gaspers taking his second win and third podium this season, he returns to the top spot in the points. But while those two have been the focus in terms of speed, consistency has allowed the likes of Elson, Lindoff, and Perry to be real threats. But our drivers aren't out of the woods yet, because with a visit to the Great White North, we come to another street course. Circuit Gilles Villeneuve usually sees a lot faster machinery, but that won't remove the danger of its looming concrete walls. Will a dark horse rise to challenge our main contenders? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 6 of the Weekend Warriors, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Stefan Schlacher. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Steph, for the second week in a row, we come to a track that punishes mistakes much more severely than normal.
Well, first of all, also from me, Villenueve de Montreal. Named after Gilles Villeneuve, who tragically died in 1982, this track bearing his name is a perfect fit. Extremely fast, every corner has to be attacked as if it's the last corner of the last lap. However, as Joe said, pushing too hard can be the end of your race as the walls are ever so close. But let's talk technical here for a second. 14 turns are situated around this 2.7 mile long track, 10 of which are part of a chicane, leaving only 4 normal turns, albeit one of them is a hairpin. So even though this track is known for its high speed, the average pace is actually quite low as consistency plays a big role here. Keeping all of that in mind, let us take you a lap around Montreal with our GSRC lap guide.
All right, we're in the GSRC SRF, so let's do a lap around Montreal. Down into the Senna S. While this will see some overtakes, it's very tough to get it done unless your nose is well ahead of the other car in the braking zone. Honestly, in the SRF, this is a tricky set of corners overall, where you might find it's easy to spin the car. Power off the corner as soon as you're confident you can apply the throttle, and then we head towards turn 3. Passing into here is a lot less common, and it's one of the less talked about corners when it comes to danger, because that exit wall is right there to collect you. It just isn't as famous as some of the other spots around this circuit. You can stay flat out through 5, but you'll need to make sure and hold to the right for a better line into turn 6. It's going to be tempting to chop off that red section inside the curb, but it upsets the car horribly. Keep the car planted and get back on the gas very early, because this leads onto the Riverside stretch. Drivers will find they can get a bit of a draft along here even if they haven't outgunned their opponent. But if you're side by side as you come into the braking for turns 8 and 9, be wary. The curbs to the inside are way too tall for this car to handle, and if you hit them too hard, it'll bounce you around so much you'll spin out. Yet again, watch out for the understeer so that you don't plow into the concrete wall, and now we fly towards Lapingle. This is a popular place for overtakes to happen, not just because it's a very sharp hairpin, but because it's the only braking zone on the whole track that isn't a chicane. But avoid the temptation to brake too late, since it'll be pretty easy to enter the corner way too hot. At that point, all your opponent has to do is pull an over-under and fly past you again along the backstretch. And a good exit off the hairpin is really what matters here because of how long this straight is. You're already going to get a huge slipstream, and on top of it, you've got another big braking event into the final chicane. Again, stay off those huge white curves, and here it's especially important. The Wall of Champions plays no favorites, and you wouldn't be alone in taking an embarrassing trip to the barrier. Now that we've come back to the pit straight, it's a drag race to the line where hopefully you've now finished a lap around Montreal. You see a lap around Montreal here between the looming white walls that are ready to collect any driver who dares toe the line. Now, if you have one in real life, one of these spec racers, and you want to be able to race it and need some help with that, well, you should check out Southeast Spec Racer. They are a full-service spec racer Ford prep shop located in Daytona Beach, Florida, offering a fleet of race-ready SRFs and the driver coaching to go with it. SSR is your one-stop shop for all things spec. They also offer transportation and storage, parts, and advice. You can find them at southeastspecracer.com. Looking at the championship as we get farther and farther into the season, it's been fascinating the way it's been swapping back and forth. Gaspers up 4, back to the lead with him coming back with a win. But Steve Elson stays back there in second. He's a little bit of a ways back, but again, that consistency could help him out. Henrik Lindoff moves up one, as so does Jerry McAreevy. A little bit hard to read that one there. It's pretty close between himself and Lindoff and Halliburton, who drops down 4 places because he missed out last round. He did not show. Let's take a look at the Spec 2 Championship. That's also swapping around quite a bit.
Well, it's Groundhog Day in first though. Alejandro Liero, he is still your first place there for 212 points. Bob Kerr 11 points behind, and then we already have Donald Fitter, who is really the mover here, plus 5 positions from last round gained. But he has, in those 5 rounds, only driven 3 times, so he already has 2 no-shows to his name. In fourth, Ed Doherty losing 1 position, 29 points behind, and as you can see, Jeff Cantor in 5th, just 34 behind first place. So this Spec 2 Championship, extremely close.
And while it might be Groundhog's Day over there, for the race details, I got you, babe. Let's take a look here for round 6. It is open setup, and they have limited the fuel of what the real cars have. So that means that you can expect 1 scheduled stop for fuel during this 40-minute race. Now, the first, second, and third get 100 points, 90 points, and 83 points, respectively. But then on down to last place, they actually ration the points. That ensures that if you get a small field, that it is still competitive in terms of where people finish. So that way, a small field, of course, doesn't ensure you get a lot of points just because not a lot of people showed up. Now, look at that incident penalty there. That means that every 10 incidents you get on track, which includes off tracks, contact with other cars, with the walls, or spins, once you hit 10 of those, you start to lose points in the championship. That's to try to keep drivers on track and keep them from abusing the limits too much and keep them clean, of course. They also have a fast repair in case you get some damage. And as we saw with Detroit last week, we expect a lot of drivers to have to use that today. Now, obviously, we are live on IESN here with the Weekend Warriors once again, and we're going to be so again later with the majors. Now, to make sure that you don't miss that, all you got to do is subscribe. There's a big red button that you can click that says subscribe. That's all you got to do, and it'll show up in your YouTube feed to make sure that you don't miss a moment here on IESN. And it's not just the GSRC. All of our other friends with many other broadcasters have all kinds of action, including the World Championship Series. So make sure and subscribe. We're going to get to qualifying in a second, but we want to give a quick mention. If you're in a business where you have to keep track of a condition of a number of vehicles, whether it be rental cars, limousines, construction vehicles, or many other vehicle types, you've got a lot to stay on top of. For people like you, Inspect a Ride is the fastest way to conduct your vehicle inspection and create reports. You can save time, eliminate paper, keep better inspection records, and simplify your life, all from your iPhone, iPad, or Android phone or tablet. You can find out more at inspectoride.com/iRacing, where you can even download a free trial to find out if Inspect a Ride is right for you. So check it out. Once again, that address is inspectoride.com/iRacing. That is a completely free piece of trial software that you can try out. Looking through the order of qualifying, there's not a whole lot of surprises because first and second are Gaspers and Halliburton. And with the return of the Greek, Dimitri Houdaloutis, he starts our second row in third. Then it gets a little bit more interesting. We're seeing some names return, some new names show up here, Steph. So I think we might be in for a couple surprises today.
Yeah, and someone who we really did miss so far this season is right now on your screen. Austin Winner, the Ohio driver there, back in this series. And yeah, he's back with a bang, you could say, putting in here top 5, just 7/10 behind David Gaspers.
Austin Winner, his name very appropriate. He's very fast in these SRFs, so we expect him to be competitive out there. Lindoff, we talked about being a competitor for the championship. Finds himself at least within the top 10, but we probably would have do a little bit better. The Scandinavian currently sitting in 6th with a 56.7. So who's our top in the Spec 2 race, though? Looks like no surprises there as well. Liero.
Yeah, Liero is right there first. He's actually, let's see, that's nearly 7/10 ahead of second place in the Spec 2 class with Edward Doherty. Well, we have Steve Elson here on the screen. There we go. Edward Doherty is sitting in 14th right now, about 3 seconds. Yeah, 2 seconds off pole.
Yeah, currently it is relatively close between Gaspers and Halliburton, about a tenth between them. Then we got a big drop, half a second, back to Hudaludis, where it gets tight once again between Juracek, Winner, and Lindoff. So hopefully those two won't be able to stretch away. We were talking a little bit about the draft and how that affects a lot of the races in the SRF. Do you think we'll see a train up at the top, or is that half a second enough for the likes of Gaspers and Halliburton to peel away from the rest of them?
The chicanes are just taking up so much of this track that I would say the 1/3 that we have straight here, I don't think it's enough for the likes of Hudaludis if they're really that far off pace. It's not that far for these guys, but in the world that they are racing in, it's so much that you actually lose that I don't think that they would be able to keep up in the draft.
We'll have to watch out for that then. We're hoping for a stunner. Well, if Halliburton and Gaspers stay together, they could do like always, where they wind up battling for the win. We're on board with Juracek right now, back and forth as he comes to complete his lap, a 56.6, as he comes up to the Wall of Champions. Usually we talk about the wall itself being a problem as he takes it right up to the edge there, but here, especially in these cars, I have to imagine the slowdown penalties would be a worry today here, Steph.
The real worry here is actually the curbs. Because if you take them too light, it's going to spin you out. If you take them too heavy, it's going to spin you out. So you really have to hit them right, and then you're going to be all safe. Especially that last chicane that we're going to see Gaspers go through in just a moment. Those big curbs, they unsettle your car so heavily that if you take too much of them, you're going to be in big problems and probably even hit the Wall of Champions.
Gaspers coming to the line. He's already on pole, and he's got a gap of just over a tenth. So as he gets another one down, it's not going to be faster. A 2:02.3 for him there. Kane Halliburton going to finish his relatively soon. One driver I'm keeping an eye on is Steve Elson. Farther down than I would have thought, all the way in 7th. Now, it's not too far back. He's at a 56.9, but he's nearly a second off of our pole and within the top 10. That is the sort of pace that we're seeing with our two main drivers that we've been watching championship-wise. Here comes Halliburton through the Wall of Champions, down to the line, Steph.
Yeah, Halliburton, let's see what he can do. He is right now on a fast lap here. Just a few more meters to go. Let's see what he can do. It's a 56.288 right there, 10th. Slower than his personal fastest lap there. Steve Elson, by the way, just an update. He drove into pit lane. There you can see it. And one thing I have to say, we have to speak relatively here as Sadro is going down into turn 7.
It's like 8. Yeah, that's 8.
We have to speak relatively. We have to talk here from Hudaludis onwards. We have to pretty much take the first two out of this equation because they're just that much further ahead than anyone else. And we know Hudaludis, he's not the best qualifier. So I think Hudaludis in the race, he can be up there. And I also think the same of Steven Elson.
Yeah, Olsen has proven to be very savvy in terms of race pace, in terms of strategy. We've seen him use it well. Hudaludis is going to get one more time around, but the time is ticking down here in qualifying to 0, so the checkered flag is out. Our first finish is going to be David Gaspers, our pole sitter. So he will be able to try and up the benchmark this final time. As he blinks a little bit, hopefully he'll get that sorted out. And he does go faster at a 55.8. That's going to move one more tenth ahead of Halliburton. Who's going to be our next one? Looks like Antonio Reese is going to come across. He's sitting down in 11th. He had a great run back in Detroit, taking a 4th place in that number 77.
Yeah, sitting right now in 11th position, right behind him. We will then also see Kane Halliburton finish his lap. There you can see it perfectly in the shot. Taking none of the curbs here at all, Antonio Reese. And let's see what he can do. He's sitting right now at 57.618. Can he top it and get into the top 10 position?
No. 57.6 for him. Halliburton abandons his lap, so he will not improve. Jeff Jacobson going to be the next to cross. Behind him, though, we've got Gorka Iturrate. We were talking about him pre-race, how he tends to have speed, but it doesn't seem to be the case today. He's only in 10th with a 57.5.
Yeah, it's as we also said in pre-race, it's a super selective track here. You have to be on point, you have to have that consistency. Otherwise, you're just gonna be somewhere in the nowhere, and that's kind of like what Gorka Iturrate is right now, with comparing it to his pace that he normally has.
That lap did not count for him. He must have had it off track. I like that phrase, somewhere to nowhere. I'll have to reuse that one. This is Dominic Bureau down in Bureau, I guess, in 19th, who also is going to abandon his lap. That's going to be everybody. Qualifying is now done here at Montreal for round 6. Let's go through your starting order. David Gaspers has put it on the pole once again, but both he and Halliburton are here today. So will we have a titanic fight? And will they be joined by the third place starter, Dimitri Hudaludis from third? Miroslav Juracek will be in P4 with Austin Winter coming back to show his might. He'll be P5. Henrik Lindhoff will start from 6th position with Steve Elson down in 7th. Daniel Sadro qualifies in 8th with our pole sitter in the Spec 2 race, Alejandro Liero, starting in 9th. Then rounding out our top 10, it is Gorka Iturrate.
Antonio Rees puts the number 77 machine into 11th position, just ahead of Francesco Bernardo in 12th position. James Tibor, the 91 in 14th. Edward Doherty, 2nd place in Spec 2, 15th overall. Ramon Regalado, 3rd in Spec 2 and 16th overall. Stevie Ray, the host of the series, in 17th. Thackeray Rivard in 18th. Dominic Bureau is running out, is first in the 10th row. And then we have Chris Murakami in 20th.
21st goes to Jeff Jacobson, then Mark Gehan in 22nd. Tom Gradwell will start 23rd, followed by Bob Kern in 24th. Tony Hayes starts P25, followed by John Dion in 26th. Jeff Cantor starts the race 27th, followed by Dan Babbitt 28th, and Gary Wolbolt, the last of the drivers to get a time in 29th. C. Love is not in, so I believe he will not start the race. And Andre Bertoni did not set a lap time, so he'll be last of our 30 starters here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. You can see they're going to have a rolling start as usual here in the series. The roof pace car lining up next to the Rowan Lake. They'll go through the final chicane, and then we'll get the green flag here for 40 minutes. That final chicane, though, for these rolling starts, let's talk about that a little bit here, Steph. Is that going to cause issues? We've got a relatively large field, not necessarily for this series, but for a rolling start. 30 cars coming through there. Are there going to be some that's just get the bat into the stick?
Well, with larger cars, we would be talking here about problems, but these cars are so small and compact, I don't think we will see any problems. We might see some people just saying, screw it, I'm just gonna slot in behind and lose that one position. Who cares? I have a 40-minute race ahead of me to make that position up again. But apart from that, I don't think we're gonna see any problems, but maybe, just maybe, we see something into turn 1, because you have that right-hand bend right before you're starting to brake.
Yes, can't forget about that Senna S. It tends to cause problems in real-world racing. Although, from what we see in F1, that's with a standing start. Maybe they get a little bit more spread out for these cars. Hopefully that'll be the case so that we don't have any big incidents into that weird left-right that kicks off the lap. They come under the bridge. The roof pace car is going to peel into the pit entry early. Then it's going to be Gaspers who has control of the field. He weaves his way through already. Halliburton a little bit behind, and he accelerates away as the green flag comes out here for round 6. Gaspers down towards the first chicane, slotting in the line ahead of Halliburton. Hudaludis into third. Juracek follows him. It's a side-by-side battle between Lindhoff and Winter. Looks like Lindhoff's going to come out ahead of those two. Already a lot of cars getting single file. Bit of side-by-side action. Is that McAreevy getting turned around? As well as another car, that's Zachary Rivard, who falls down the order, but otherwise it looks like a clean start.
Yes, otherwise than that, a very clean start. Henrik Lindhoff gaining one position there over Austin Winner, as we saw. So that is your first mover there in the pack. But apart from that, everything single file already.
They come out of turn 5 into 6. The drivers braking hard, but not seeing anybody try to make moves through there as well. This almost looks, I'd say, more calm than what we saw at Detroit, where drivers already going into survival mode.
Well, Detroit, you have that very hard braking zone into turn 3, so that's a bit more inviting to make something happen here. But here you have those chicanes after chicane after chicane for the first few part of the lap. So taking it easy is actually a bit better, and Miroslav Jurček losing here one position against Henrik Lindhoff. So Henrik Lindhoff, new 4th place driver, gaining 2 positions on this opening lap.
That number 8 car is going to be one to watch, but Jurček not done with his challenges. Austin Winner is right behind him, and actually maybe he is done with him, because Winner seems to be giving him a bump draft on his way down towards the wall of champions. Our leaders are staying in order. Gaspers is still leading Halliburton. You can see them at the front as they hit the braking. Hudaludis is right behind them. We do have a battle for position as Jurček manages to he cuts the chicane on the first lap. That's going to be a big deal of hurt.
That was an incredible save, though. I think he went right over the curb there too. No, he didn't. But there you can see Miroslav just with the very big speed there from the speed bump and a draft, and it just outbrakes himself, loses the car nearly there. Great save, but obviously a lot of position and times lost, as he is still serving his slowdown penalty here as we speak.
Now we're watching the replay of Ricard. I believe this was indeed McAreevy that he banged into the side of. Those two just pinched down at the apex, come together enough. Oh no, it was Doherty, it looks like.
Yeah, that was Edward Doherty there. We have obviously same pains, and yeah, just a racing incident there. The spotter doesn't work yet here, so just doesn't realize he has Edward Doherty on his inside, and they sadly collect.
As we come back live, we take a look at the leaders, still all 3 in a chain, and they are pulling far away from those behind him. Lindhoff leads ahead of Elson now, who managed to get by Winner, fell back to 6th place, and then they're carrying along Daniel Sadro. Oh, we got a 3 wide situation a little behind them, though. This is Jurček, Desai, and Antonio Reese trying to sort it out through Lepingle as they come off the corner. It looks like Desai's going to come out ahead of him, but I don't think they're done with it yet.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like Miroslav Jurček there. He is right now in 12th position here in this battle, so that tells you how much time he lost there from his slowdown. Already going side by side there. He does not want to waste any time here, getting back through the field once again.
Come down to the braking for the final chicane.
There's another one who is serving a penalty. That's Lindhoff. Lindhoff is serving a penalty now.
2 big players suffering at the start of this race. He's even going to be passed by his teammate Liero, our leader for the Spec 2. This is the Scandinavian's view. Very similar, except the car doesn't look like it's snapped.
Yeah, just weird enough, it just didn't turn for him there, and which is a weird thing if you know how this car behaves normally on off-throttle situations. So yeah, just taking, instead of driving it over the high curbs, they're just taking the inside and taking a slowdown rather than some damage to his car.
And irony of ironies, he's back with Jurček, who had it the previous lap. They're 9th and 10th now. Not the spots that I think they wanted to be fighting for. As that was happening, you might have seen a little bit of smoke in the background of Lepingle. That was Gradwell having some problems. Actually found the inside wall, I believe. Let's see what happened to the Australia-New Zealand driver. It's the 299 in the green, or the black that you're seeing. Oh, lift throttle oversteer maybe there, Steph? Didn't hit the wall, though. Just had to back it up and get it turned around. So as we come back live, it is still Gaspers up in the lead ahead of Halliburton, ahead of Hudaludis, with now a 5-second lead over Austin Winner. Boy, I mean, you were spot on your prediction there, Steph. Those three are really the ones to beat here today.
Yeah, it's kind of to be expected, though. There are three big players in this series, but I was hoping that someone else of the underdogs would be able to get back onto the back of these guys. But yeah, Austin Winner, he's already quite a lot of, I think it's 4 seconds now, 5 seconds, yeah, something like that, of our three leaders.
See, as they come down into the Senna S, nobody really making any moves. I wonder if we're seeing some fuel saving here. It's a similar situation back here for fourth place. That is Austin Winner at the lead of Elson and Sadro coming down to turn 3 now. They've separated themselves from seventh place, who is Liero, not really fighting with them as much, more for points than for Clash Championship situation. And this group also not really shuffling around now that they seem to have gotten them settled out. I wonder if we'll see this quite a bit for the rest of the race until the pit stops, which that window, I believe, should be opening within maybe the next 5 minutes here.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think 10 minutes is the fuel window where it opens. We will have to keep an eye on Stevie Reyes. He's always the guy who pits on the first available lap of the pit window. So once he's in, we know the pit window is open for all these drivers.
Ray's a little bit farther down than what we're used to seeing him lately. He's running in 18th and actually under attack right now because that's Andre Bertoni trying to come up the inside as they come down to Lepingle. Is this going to be a straightforward outbraking, or will we see an over-under potentially? Oh, they accordion together. He tries to stay out of Murakami, but he still manages to get it done, with Steve Ray now being pushed down to 20th.
Yeah, just ahead of them we have James Tibor versus Fred Desai, who are switching positions as we speak. And also Chris Murakami is on the threat here against Andres Bertoni, who is now also ahead of Chris Murakami.
That is 19th position for Steve Ray, I should correct. We had a car that seemed to have had a wreck and towed. Oh, and we had an accident in 8th place?
Oh yes, Francesco Bernardo, he did hit very hard. The Wall of Champions actually gets collected by the two teammates of Liero and Lindhoff.
And Juracek is the one who capitalized on it. Let's watch the replay. Ooh, look at him clobber that curb. You could see the car bounce like you were talking about earlier before the race, Steph. Man, he paid dearly for just a couple inches, it looked like.
Yeah, and innocent bystander Alejandro Liero, heavy damage to his car now too. It just did led by his teammate there. There you can see it. Nowhere to go there for Alejandro, and then also nowhere to go for Hendrik. And yeah, both Francesco Bernardo and Alejandro Liero are hurting very much already.
Ooh, a lot of damage on those cars. Juracek now finds himself back up into 7th, which sounds good considering he was all the way to 11th before, but he qualified in 4th, so I think he might be ruining his early mistake because he could have been running with those top 3. For now, he is ahead of Lindhoff, Liero, and Bernardo. Actually, Bernardo losing another position to James Tabor.
Speaking about the top 2, we actually have a pass right now there between Hoodeludis and Kane Halliburton, or do we? Yes, we do. Whoa!
That was Gaspers trying to collect it because he got a tap from Hoodeludis, his teammate behind him. Hoodeludis took the cut course. Let's watch the replay, and he keeps going, but he may have lost his ability to fight with these top 2. Thought he was braking soon enough, but apparently it wasn't.
Well, rule number 1 of racing, don't hit your teammate. Hoodeludis not able to do so, outbrakes himself in the drafter with the overspeed. And yeah, David Gaspers, he doesn't have a lot of damage, so he probably still is okay for top line, straight line speed. Kane Halliburton, he's dropping off ever so slightly through the turns, but I am used to seeing that already in this race, so no concern there. He will surely draft back up to him, but that mistake has made a two-car fight out of this three-car fight for the lead.
Not sure that Houdeluz could draft back up. He's already 4 seconds back. He's kind of in no man's land now because Austin Winter is 3.5 back from him.
Kane with a very hard rumble there over the turn 8 inside curb. Nearly lost his car there because he took it a bit too deep into 7. Yeah, let's actually take that on the replay because it was really hairy for Kane Halliburton there. Because he really took it super deep into the bridge there. You can see it. He's just a car width away from the turn 7 apex and then heavy over the inside curbs of turn 8.
Yeah, you could see how deep he was into there. Was nowhere near that first apex. And that was costly. He's 1.2 back. He might be able to slipstream his way back forward, but we'll see. In the meantime, down in 5th place, side by side between Sadro and Elson. Daniel going to come out the top of those two. Number 51 now in 5th position, but he's bad out of the final chicane. Here comes Steve Elson with a head of steam. Could he take a look down into the first corner? He's thinking about it. Nope, he's going to stay behind. Doesn't even poke his nose out.
Yeah, Daniel Sadro once again showing it's good to not hit those curbs at all in the last chicane because they unsettle your car that much.
Now, we might be hearing that Halliburton got awful close to the Wall of Champions and may have even touched it. I think we have a replay here. Let's see if we do. We're digging through the archives to see what the footage shows.
Might have been netcode. Either way, he takes it quite deep once again into the chicane. Has a bit of a sideways movement through the middle of it. And
we got a little bit of damage on the right side. Let's watch from on board. That'll give us a better idea. Let's watch the right-hand side of the car. Ooh, yeah. Yeah, he clattered it. Man, it almost feels like he's just overdriving it. As soon as he lost that little bit of time, he's trying to hustle now, and I think it's hurting him.
Yeah, it does seem so. We'll have to wait if he really has the damage, because on my screen he doesn't have it. And I think on the broadcast he now also has a clean car, so I think he was lucky and got away without damage.
In 7th place, this is Juracek in a battle once again. Lindhoff to his left side. The number 84 coming down with the inside racing line as it's a drag race. Oh, but a lift from Lindhoff. Lindhoff is thinking preservation, and he lets Juracek through.
Yes, they were side by side, starting from turn 8, as Steve Elson, he is the first taker of the pits here. Actually, no, Steve Ray is obviously the first taker of the pits.
Yeah, Steve does this tradition. But he had a long stop, 25 seconds in there. That's 15 seconds longer than what we're seeing for most of the others. I think he may have got a speeding penalty.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, when you said 15 seconds, that awful looks like a speeding penalty into the entry there, as we have a car, Alejandro Liero, super wide at turn 2. Actually got hit there by James Tibor.
So we've got Elson in, Rivard has also come in, probably get his spare car. We understand that Bureau had a tow, and Bernardo used his fast repair. So a number of drivers back in the mid-pack having some action. Meanwhile, look at this action in 7th place that we're watching. Excuse me, 8th place, I believe.
Yes, 8th place. That's between James Tibor and Antonio Rees. James Tibor obviously had, as reported, the incident with Alejandro Liero through turn 1. So Liero once again with more damage to his car, and he's now really dropping off the pace here. So he probably is gonna go in this lap and get himself a new car. But Antonio Rees, he's now drafting up here to the back, but thinks better of it, as we now come up to the very big straight back to turn 13.
String of cars at the back of them don't count out Gorka Iturrate. He's been looking for a good result after errors throughout the season. Oh, and we have a battle between Lindhoff and Juracek once again. But Lindhoff, once again, lets Juracek stay ahead. And looks like that's because Miroslav is taking his pit stop.
And actually did catch Hendrik out a little bit there as he went really hard over both curbs through the last chicane.
So Elson's currently our highest pitter. I think, will this put Liero ahead of him? No, I don't believe so. Juracek, though, possibly. Elson already on the front stretch. Juracek is in his stall. He's stationary. They're relatively quick stops here. And Elson is through, though. Stays our highest pitter, Juracek, heading on out. He will be the second highest pitter. But well behind Steve Elson.
Yeah, and one thing we are not allowed to forget, Montreal, it has probably one of the most interesting pit exits on any Formula 1 racetrack because it cuts away turn 1 and actually is quite a lot faster through turn 2 than the actual racing line for that corner. So if someone comes out side by side, you might actually see someone benefiting from the pit exit and getting ahead of someone.
And while we've switched back to 7th place, this is Tabor ahead of Reese with Desai watching from the popcorn position. Reese pokes his nose out down into Lepingle. Not going to try and execute on it at this point, though. Looks like behind them they are swapping places between Bertoni and Regalado, though. Ramon moves up into the lead for the Spec 2 championship. Excuse me, for the Spec 2 race. And I believe Francesco... Francesco Bernardo, one of our other drivers in the Spec 2, just had a problem. This was back in 8 and 9. Let's take a look at the replay. I was just going to say that I think Francesco, who has pitted, might be challenging him for the lead, but not anymore. Those curbs are playing havoc with these spec racers.
Yeah, they're one of the weirdest hates for these cars because they're somewhat halfway in between a very high and a small curb. So hitting them can benefit you, but it also can really hurt you depending on how you hit them. And he shows right there what can happen if you do not hit them right. But one thing we have to report here, that's why we're on David Gaspers, who is leading our race here by 2 seconds quite comfortably. He has a little bit of damage on the right side, so potentially he did pick up a little bit of the tire wall out of the Wall of Champions.
Well, the good news for David is that Halliburton hasn't been able to chase him down. It's about 2 seconds between them. And Houdalutis is in the same boat. He's dropped back now to 5.5 seconds, though he is still in P3. We've had a few of our drivers come in and take their scheduled stop, but we're still waiting a lot of them. And don't forget that last week Gaspers didn't have a totally clean race, despite that win.
Yeah, he had a few moments where our hearts were stopping, especially that pit in lap where he absolutely cluttered the wall in turn 1, outbraking himself. But as long as he doesn't do anything like that this week, I think he is once again our top tier driver in contention for this win.
He's very lucky that they have that spare car in this series. Speaking of which, we've only lost Gary Wolbolt so far. Otherwise, everybody who has had problems has come on in, taken a spare car, and gotten back out on track. 29 of them still running. Jeff Jacobson, we're watching in the battle with Murakami for P11 coming down to the Wall of Champions. Murakami nice and smooth through there. Not even a challenge from Jacobson. Exactly halfway through the race at this point. So who's going to cut this thing in half in terms of strategy? Jacobson really not able to threat on the red and white machine of Murakami.
interestingly enough, nobody wants to take that strategy, splitting it in half, because everyone who did not pit yet is already past the pit entry point. So, yeah, interestingly enough, that nobody really wants to take that at all.
And we haven't seen much in the way of lap traffic yet, but we will have a little bit, I believe, pretty soon. Our leaders are on the Rowing Lake Straight, while the next car to be lapped, Dominic Bureau, is coming through the Wall of Champions. So maybe in 5 or 6 more laps, he's going to get run down, and then they're going to have to deal with that headache.
Yes, Dominic Bureau, who takes his debut at pretty much home track. He is a Canadian, so taking your debut on the Canadian track on this schedule is actually quite lifting to him, I would say so. But right now, being in last, started 19th, so he probably has gone through some problems in the first part of this race. But keep your head up and good things will come to you.
Well, the bad news for Canadians fans watching is you guys aren't doing too well on your home court. John Dion is the only other Canadian out here. They're currently 27th and 28th out on track, so they'll need to do a little bit more practice. This is Jacobson coming in from 11th.
Hooter Lotus with a big slide there through turn 4 and 5, taking a lot of inside grass there, nearly hitting the outside wall.
Let's take a watch from on board. Here's the replay. Yeah, a little bobble coming off of there, but continues on like nothing happened. Hooter still in third.
Problems, Kane Halliburton, I'm sorry, Joe, he just took the shortcut through turn 8, going way over the grass there. So our P2 and P3 right now pushing way too hard and driving over the limits right now.
And very similar to what we saw with his error that cost him the draft earlier. Remember, he went in deep to turn 8. He didn't cut the course that time. Oh, and Murakami having problems.
Let's have a look.
See if we can figure this one out.
Seems like
6
route
and 7.
5. Or 6 and 7, yeah. Just
Whoa!
too much curb.
He was up on 2 wheels with that thing. Let's watch from his perspective. That's scary. This car really doesn't handle that too well.
Yeah, the problem with this curb is actually that the inside, the red stuff, the inside is actually lower than the curb itself. So if you go over that, you have to have the line, otherwise you hit that ramp on the inside of the curb and it just shoots you up in the air like Chris Murakami demonstrated there very perfectly as Austin Wainers takes into pit lane.
From 4th place, he ducks it in for his scheduled stop with about 16 minutes left to go. You can see it's a long pit lane to get down to where he needs to go. Fred Desai is going to be following him. The Frenchman in the number 76 was running in 10th before he entered pit lane. Austin Winter is coming back out. Elson was our highest pitter, but Winter is going to be on track well before Elson even gets to the first corner. So, number 33, currently the highest car to have taken his scheduled stop.
And one thing we have to also say, Austin Winter, he has a lot of free track ahead of him. So, question is, can he use that to his advantage and maybe lure Dimitris Houdiloudis and Kane Halliburton into some more mistakes with the pressure of having the free track ahead of him?
And you have to wonder, too, if Houdiloudis is even aware that some of the drivers behind him have pitted a little bit earlier. He can go a little longer if he wants to. This is Winter that we're watching there in the orange machine under the bridge into turn 8. Looking a lot more smooth than some of the other cars we've seen through there.
David Gaspers into pit lane he goes. Kane Halliburton goes past, so he will take the lead away from David Gaspers. Let's see, Houdiloudis also drives past the pit lane, so P2 and P3 stay out while our leader David Gaspers goes into pit lane.
All right, if you're David Gaspers, well, you might not even be aware that you have the damage, but do you take your spare car? Is it worth that risk?
I would do so, yes.
And he does.
Yes, he also does. But the real problem for David Gaspers right now, remember, Austin Winner, he has the clear track, but Henrik Lindhoff, he's not that far ahead. Ramon Regalado, there we go, is not that far ahead of Mr. Winner, so that might actually be a problem for... Never mind, David Gaspers is already out again.
All right.
I have my calculations wrong there. My bad.
Let's go to Gorka Iturrate down in 13th because he's got Alejandro Liero with a big run. He used the slipstream from Reese, already passed him, but as they come too wide, he finally backs out of it into the wall of champions. And don't look now, this is Fred Desai, who has returned to the track after his pit stop and ready to go. All of these drivers have finished their stop, so this is legit for position. Around the outside once again into the first corner, and once again Liero not able to execute.
Yes, Gorka Iturrate, he did perfect job there of defending his position, but now Alejandro Liero, he is under pressure of Antonio Rees, but Rees not able to do anything there against the Swedish driver.
Still waiting for 5 cars to come in for their stops. A little bit of a poke out from the likes of Antonio Rees, but not a serious attempt. He gets back behind the rest of them through 6 and 7. Awful close to the wall for Liero. He's currently second in the Spec 2 race here, but we're waiting for Regalado to come in the number 288.
You speak and shall release. Our leaders are now into pit lane. Dimitris Hudiludis, he nearly did speed there on the pit entry, locked up the brakes really hard to get it slowed down for the pit speed limit. Very lucky break for him, just about managed to be under the speed limit there when entering the cones. But both already pulled up to stop Kane Halliburton off any moment now, as David Gaspers already is into turn 1. Where is Austin Winner though? That is the main question. He is just coming out of the last turn.
Yeah, it looks like Hudiludis is well safe because he's already out of his box. Heading on his way back into third.
Daniel
now, what about Sadro?
Yeah, that's going to be close. That's going to be very close in between the two. Obviously, once again, Daniel Sadro, the faster line through turn 2, takes advantage of it and stays ahead of Austin Winner.
Sadro jumps Austin Winner in the pit stops, but I think Austin is close enough that he could get up to the draft. I think we got a battle on our hands for just outside of the podium. Meanwhile, Ramon Regalado does come in and pit and relinquishes the lead for the Spec 2 race. That goes to Liero, and the next car back will be Regalado, maybe? Yes, I believe so. He will re-inherit second place ahead of Doherty.
Who is actually first? It's actually Alejandro Liero after all his problems. So, yeah, good job from Alejandro to actually, with all his problems that we saw him have in this race, to actually still be in lead of Spec 2 really shows the class of this driver.
I have to say, though, this is a little lower than what we've been seeing from Liero lately. He's been getting top 10s and whatnot, and now he's barely looking at a top 10 if he can get past Iturrate. He's under challenge from Reese down the back stretch. He comes back to the line after a defensive move into turn 8 and no change of position.
No change of position, but we probably have to watch this pack here coming out of the hairpin, because they are very close together, so close together that I would say that Antonio Rees has a good chance of actually jumping both cars ahead of him if he times his run right.
Stay with this, but we've got a replay afterwards. Regalado is handed over second in Spec 2 after a mistake. All line up to the inside as they come down the rowing lake. You could see Iturrate leading ahead of Liero. He's going to poke his nose out, comes to the outside with all his momentum in his favor, and under braking, he looks a little bit stronger, but here comes Iturrate back at him. Both of them deep into the corner. He tries to hold on to it. 3 wide is around both of them. Goes Antonio Rees and manages to take 2 spots in 1. Fred Desai stuck behind them. He's trying to find a way through, but he gets bottled up behind the likes of Iterate. It's not done yet as they come through turn 1. Reese trying to hold them off, and he finally completes the pass. Beautiful stuff by the 77.
And Liero in behind, he's still side by side there with Fratricide, trying to gain back one position here into turn 3 they go, and he only loses 2 positions right there. What a save from Alejandro Liero though through that last turn.
I don't know how every driver made it through without hitting the wall or each other. Look at this nonsense. Both of them go in deep. And then we see Liero have to save the car. Beautiful save, by the way. And what a heads-up move by Reese.
Steven Elson just wrecked out of the car race.
Oh, no. After the good that he was doing in that number 56 machine.
Happened in turn 6. He took it to turn 10, limping around. But then in turn 10, he said no more. There we can see the damaged car, the outcome of this wreck. Just happened 1 turn earlier to him.
Wow, a lot of action. Oh my goodness, he got airborne. Absolutely, 4 wheels off the ground. See it one more time here. Around the blind corner of 5.
Hold on, Kane Halliburton is in 3rd right now. What is happening to this car race right now? What did happen to Kane Halliburton? While we're on the replay here with Steven Elson. Kane Halliburton out of turn 4. That's already 1 lap ago, so might not be able to get to it. But as we know, these cars take a lot of a lot of grass there through that turn, and he just takes too much bottoms out, and loses his car into the wall. And there you can see that left-hand rear damage and a lot of damage to his ego.
All right, we're going to see this is down into 1 and 2. It's the number 12 successful through there. He was in 2nd place at this point. He's now gotten back into 3rd. This is the corner where it all happens, down into turn 3. Looks good at the start of it.
And now he takes just too much grass there, bottoms out into the wall. He goes here backwards into it and goes once again, but there passes Dimitrios Houdeludis, so move him up into 2nd place.
And poor Halliburton, his woes are not over. Daniel Sadro and Austin Winter are coming up to try and challenge. How about Sadro? Started this race in 8th. He's looking at a podium. That's not easy to do in this series with how fast the top guys are to go from that far back in the field. The number 51, first of all, has to try and shake the likes of Austin Winter if he wants to take a taste of the champagne. I mentioned earlier we didn't get to go to the replay. I'm not sure if it's even worth going back at this point. 2nd place now goes to Francesco Bernardo in Spec 2. Oh, and Ramon Regalado with another error.
This is starting to shape up as probably the worst race for Ramon Regalado in this series right now.
Surprised you're not saying his name like you did before.
What, Ramon Regalado?
There you go. I can't roll my R's as well as you. That's beautiful. Oh, and now Dimitri Houdeludis! Oh my goodness!
Same mistake as Kane Halliburton, literally a carbon copy there between the two.
Took the words right out of my mouth. Now, he didn't hit the wall. He managed to salvage it, but that loses him 2nd place. Kane Halliburton back up there. Austin Winter, in the meantime, has managed to overtake Daniel Sadro. So those two promoted to 3rd and 4th. And they've got Houdeludis right behind them. David Gasper's laughing his way to the bank today. He's got a 17-second lead over 2nd place. He hasn't been flawless, but he's the only driver that has managed to keep the car from turning around.
Whoa, speaking of that, Dimitrios Houdeludis nearly goes in the back there of Daniel Sadro. Actually picked up a little bit of damage there on my screen and also on the broadcast there. The rear you can see it's a bit bent up, So there was some net code involved between the two, sadly. But Austin...
We have 4.5 minutes left to go in this race, so all this craziness will be over soon, but how much more have we got on our hands through the final chicane? They've got lap traffic up ahead of them. That's Dominic Bureau ahead of Austin Winter. Is he going to get in the way? They're coming up to some of the more technical portions of this track, which does not bode well. Riding on board with Houdaloutis, the Greek driver following in the wake of Daniel Sadro, who is not without some damage himself. You can see on the rear of his spec race.
Yes, everyone in this pack, I think, apart from Austin Winter, has damage to his car.
They're getting bottled up here.
Yes, they're really getting held up right now by the Canadian driver of Dominic Bureau.
He's not pulling over. Oh, there we go. Beautiful move. Nicely done by Dominic. That's going to allow Austin through. It does hold up the likes of Sadro slightly, and Houdaloutis is now all over him, looking to make up for his mistake. A little less damage on his car after he managed to keep it off the wall from turns 3 and 4, but not brave enough to send it in.
Yeah, Dimitrios obviously has to play it smart here. He still has the chance to get that top 3. So it's only 1 car away, sorry, 2 cars away from him.
And a reminder to our audience that that Houdaloutis is not in the points championship. He missed some of the early rounds and has come back, so he's effectively here just for glory. He's not going to want to sit back there in 5th. He's going to want to get on the podium.
The real question, though, right now, if they work together, are they able to catch a hurting Kane Halliburton? He is not that far up the road from these 3 guys right now. And oh, who's that in the wall? Dan Babbage nearly getting collected there by Kane Halliburton on the exit.
Yep, he gets into the wall, and Houdaloutis gets another run on Sadro down to turn 1. He does look to the inside this time, thinks about trying to outbrake him. Sadro, despite being slightly off the apex, doesn't relinquish that 4th position up ahead of them. If they start fighting, that could mean good news for the number 33. Austin Winter is starting to pull a slight gap and looking up ahead to Halliburton, who's cut it down to about 1.8 for 2nd place.
Yes, last lap, 7/10 faster from Austin Winter over Kane Halliburton, so he is closing in, but is it enough to get that 2nd place or secure that 3rd place for him?
My goodness, he's doing a gearbox inspection on the back of Sadro. Did you see how close he got to that faux speed machine? And once again, he finds the slipstream. I wonder if the top end of Houdaloutis is hurting a little bit, because he's so close behind him, and he could make a move if he wanted to, but he hasn't.
Well, as much as he's pushing right now through the turns, he might actually be wanting to do something, as it does seem like that he's hurting a little bit as he's stalling out there against Daniel Sadro, who's on the inside now for turn 10. Very deep on the brakes for both of them. And Houdaloutis off the throttle, he is the faster one and gets that position away from Daniel Sadro to move him into 4th place.
Meanwhile, white flag is out for this man, David Gaspers. 2 wins on the cards. It looks like he's going to be the first to take back-to-back this season. All he has to do is bring it home. But we said that last week, and he almost didn't, Stefan.
Yeah, he almost didn't. Had a very big trouble through turn. I think it was 11 out of the fountain complex that he had his problems. But you also have to be able to be ahead or over these problems and finish the race in order to win a race.
To finish first you must finish. So as we watch this battle for 3rd, which is a lot closer than watching David Gaspers on a victory lap. Oh, and we have a big wreck. This is with Bertoni. And I think it involved the likes of Iterade. And it looks like, is that Liero? Yeah, Liero was the only one able to squeak through, though he was involved at the start of it. 77 coming head on into the car ahead.
Yeah, a bit of an interesting incident there. Liero not expecting that late dive there. And yeah, unfortunate racing incident, I would put it down as.
We come back live. David Gaspers down the Rowing Lake Straight. The DH driver looking for win number 3 and a potential championship. After this, there are not many rounds to go. He is going to set himself in a beautiful position up to the wall of champions. Only has to be smooth through here. He barely takes any curb. Smartly so. On to the front stretch. The number 23 takes victory here in Canada. Meanwhile, the battle for third. Halliburton is well too far ahead of them. He's going to take second place. It's Austin Winter right now, but Hudaludis has managed to get by Sadro.
Oh,
he takes a poke around the outside. Yeah, and Winter goes too wide. He costs himself 2 positions. But what about Hudaludis? Here comes Sadro. He's got a head of steam. It's going to be a drag race down to the line, and I think Daniel's going to have it. He just beats him to a podium finish from 8th place on the grid. Wow. 10th place, also in a little bit of a battle. This is Fred Desai and Antonio Reese. Want to mention while we're watching this, Liero is going to take the win in the Spec 2 race. He'll get an 8th place finish.
Yeah,
Reese chasing him down to the final chicane.
Right behind them, they overtook Andres Bertoni, who is out of fuel right now on the last straight. And it seems like Fred Desai is able to get this position away as Antonio Reese way too far back, 2 car length between the two. So Fred Desai, 10th place, taking it away from Antonio Reese in the last lap.
Boy, I hope this track is back on the calendar next year because it gave us a good one here today. As we take a look at the battle for third. Man, Winter has got to be kicking himself.
Yes, it was kind of his place to lose there, and just incredible mistake there, just way too late on the brakes, about 50 meters too late on the brakes there for Austin. And yeah, then Sadra with the run comes past Dimitris Hudaludis, who once again, another driver who is gonna be kicking himself for the mistakes he did, because it was once again his 3rd place to lose.
Well, that's going to take us to break here for the Weekend Warriors, but the broadcast is not over. We're going to have all the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. And stick around because on screen you can see the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Boy, who needs open wheels when you've got the Spec Racer Fords at Montreal? We just watched round 6 here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, and David Gaspers took away the win by 22 seconds, but that really doesn't tell the story. Halliburton behind had to try and come back after his own errors. Little luck helped him into that second place. And then Daniel Sadro from 8th to 3rd, taking it not just on the final lap, but in the final corner. Dimitri Houdaloutis probably also ruining his mistakes, taking 4th. He could have had that 3rd easily. Austin Winter, it is not chicken dinner for him. The number 33 takes 5th with a mistake in the final turn. Henrik Lindhoff, he'll finish in P6 with Miroslav Juracek. A bit anonymous after some of his own mistakes. He still takes 7th. Alejandro Liero will take 8th, and Gorka Iturrate 9th. Fred Desai rounds out your top 10.
The number 77 machine of Antonio Rees starts 11th, finishes 11th. Geoff Jacobs in 2nd place in Spec 2 puts his 240 machine into 12th position. Andres Bertoni 13th, Chris Murakami 14th, Ramon Regalado from 16th into 15th he goes. Bob Kern 16th from 24th on the grid. Tom Gradwell 17th, Edward Doherty 18th, John Dion from 26th to 19th, and Mark Heehan, the last car on the lead lap, in 20th.
Jeff Cantor finishes P21, followed by Stevie Ray. Again, not the best race we've seen from him, all the way down in 22nd. Dominic Bureau actually climbed up quite a bit, despite we mentioned it earlier that he was far down the order. He was 23rd, the Canadian. Don Babich in 24th, with Francesco Bernardo finishing 25th. James Tabor is P26, followed by Tony Hayes of Absolute Beginners fame in 27th, Steve Elson 28th, and Zachary Vard 29th. The last car to finish is Gary Wobolt. Sea Love did not start the race. We've got our winner here to talk to us, David Gaspers. As we pull him into the booth, that's both street courses, both wins for David. It seems like you've learned a few lessons because it was a little bit smoother final lap for you this time.
Yeah, this week I built my setup to be very stable, and I think that really helped me today.
It certainly did. A lot of your rivals seemed to fall off behind you. Did that ease off the pressure, or were you still pushing hard to keep the lap times up?
That depends on the part of the race. After I got the first gap to Kane, I was pushing really hard to get not let him catch up again, because I knew if he was sitting in the draft, he would jump me at the pit stop. But after, I think, Kane spun or something in the first chicane and Dimi made his mistake, I was just driving to the finish without trying to mess up.
Now, while this race can cause some interesting results because of the punishing walls, next round we're going to the Charlotte Roval. Now, that thing, I had to drive the lap guide myself for that, and I can say that it was interesting to drive certain parts of it. What are your thoughts going into next week? Are you looking forward to it, or are you kind of not happy that that's on the schedule?
I don't know. I haven't driven the new Roval yet. I never liked Rovals before because the finishes are just really random. But with a chicane there, it might be better than the others. So I don't know.
You're going to have a hairy time trying to navigate that chicane over the 40 minutes, I can tell you that. Congratulations on another victory. That's win number 3. We'll hope to see you in a week's time.
Yeah.
That was David Gaspers, P1, here today at Montreal. Up next, we have our third place finisher, Daniel Sadro, ready to talk to Stefan.
Yes, and Daniel Sadro, one lucky finish for you there, I would say. Coming from 8th, bit of a quiet race throughout most of this, and then suddenly the chance opens, you take it from 5th to 3rd. Talk us through those last few corners of your race.
Yeah, what a finish! I watched the two of them, Demetrius and Austin, go side by side through the final hairpin, and Demetrius kind of was a little had spun it a little bit, but got back on the gas. And I was just following them. I knew something was going to happen. I didn't know what was. And then when it looked like Austin had gone off on the chicane, and then I had just gotten a really good run out of Demetrius and lucked into a podium.
My question though, were you able to save some fuel during your time behind them, or were you always going flat out?
At the end, I was always going flat out, or as flat out as I could. They were both faster than I was, and I was just lucky enough to keep up with them in the draft. But yeah, what a battle! Congratulations to Austin; he was great today as well, and yeah, that was fun.
Austin winners, the 5th place finisher in this race. But going forward to next week, we're gonna be at the new Charlotte Roval. How are you looking towards this race? You like it? You hate it? How is your feeling towards that track?
It's mixed. I do like it in a number of ways. It is kind of fun. It's interesting. It's very challenging. We ran this in week 13, and it was a real tough thing. And I know I spun out, and I will probably end up doing that again. But hopefully, I'll do better this time.
Yeah, obviously you also have those big curbs once again on the 2 chicanes coming back to the start-finish line on the Charlotte Roval. But yeah, anyway, that was Daniel Sadro, your 3rd place finisher from P8 on the grid. And meanwhile, Joe Peak is going to talk to Alejandro Liero.
Alejandro, you win the Spec 2 race here today, but it wasn't totally straightforward for you, including some contact with your teammate.
Yeah, but I just had so much fun, even if it didn't go as planned in the beginning. I was running not the best pace, but I had Francesco in front. And sadly, he made a slight mistake, went into the wall of champions, and I had no time to avoid him. And then Henrik just gave me a little kiss from behind. But the car wasn't too bad, so I was able to do a couple of laps. And there's my daughter that talks. But yeah, I had so much fun, actually. I hope you saw some of the fights. I thought they were fun.
Yeah, they were definitely fun to watch from our perspective. Unfortunately, the action was pretty intense up front, so we did have to duck away a few times. This Spec 2 championship, are you thinking that you'll likely be winding up in the Spec 1 next season with the way this has been going? Because it feels like every single race we're mentioning either you leading the Spec 2 race at some point or at least a contender for the win in the Spec 2 race.
Yeah, if I can manage to not die, then surely that's a possibility. And then if Donald shows his face, because I'd surely like to race him as well, because he's awesome to race with. Would be nice to see him around more.
So do we have another generation of sim racers coming forward with your daughter there?
We'll see. More into ice skating so far, but I'm trying.
Yeah, ice skating is just as good, but that 282 was the top driver with the 200 on it, and we look forward to seeing you at Charlotte.
Thanks. It was nice to talk to you again, guys.
Alejandro Liero, he finished 8th in the race, but the winner in Spec 2 here today. We are going to close up here, and of course, we want to thank a few people before we do. A big thank you to Stevie Ray, of course, who organizes the Weekend Warriors, but also to to Southeast Spec Racer. Again, you can find them at southeastspecracer.com. They are located in Daytona Beach, Florida, ready to help you if you want to race a real Spec Racer Ford. Another thank you also to Inspect a Ride. If you want to get that free trial, you can find it at inspectoride.com/iRacing. Go and give it a look. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast. You can see them listed here on your screen, as well as IESN. Sorry to my director there for skipping over that one. Thanks to those companies. And additional thanks go out to Eric Ekholm and June Lalonde, who provide our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Steph, Amjed, and Dougie, as well as a big thank you to Adam Lindgren, our spotter in the background today. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com, or you can check us out on social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. Our next race, we are going to Charlotte, as we mentioned, a little bit down south to the Roval course. That'll be February 17th at 2:45 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.